I want you to do something for me right now. Just stop whatever you're doing and ask yourself one question. Do you actually know if you're going to be okay? Not like, yeah, probably fine okay. I mean, actually okay, numbers okay, math okay, retirement okay, because I said probably fine for about 12 years. And then one night I actually checked, and I wish I could uncheck. Here's what I told myself every single year in my 30s. I've got time. 3 words. That's all it was. I've got time. And you know what? That wasn't even a lie I told myself consciously. It just sat there in the background. Like background music you don't notice until someone turns it off. I was making decent money, paying my bills, contributing something to my 401k, and that felt like enough. It felt responsible. Nobody around me was doing dramatically better, so I used them as my measuring stick. That was my first mistake. It was a Tuesday, nothing special. I was just sitting at my kitchen table after dinner, and I had this thought almost like a dare I gave myself. What if I actually just ran the numbers? Not a financial advisor, not some complicated tool, just a basic retirement calculator, the kind anyone can find in 5 seconds online. I typed in my age, my current savings, what I was putting in every month, and what age I wanted to retire. 4 fields, literally 4 boxes. I hit enter. The number that came back, I'm going to be honest with you, I stared at it for a solid 2 minutes. I didn't even blink. I just sat there. The calculator said I needed somewhere around $2 million to retire comfortably at 65. Maybe a little more, depending on lifestyle, healthcare, inflation. $2 million. I said it out loud in my empty kitchen twice because it didn't sound like a real number. It sounded like a different person's problem. Then I looked at what I actually had, and that's when the Tuesday night went from uncomfortable to genuinely frightening. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this to make myself look better, about $41,000 saved total across everything. 41,000, 38 years old. I had been working for 15 years, I had a decent income, and I had $41,000 and a lot of excuses. And what killed me, what really got me, was the math on what I needed to do from that point just to catch up. It wasn't just bad. It was almost insulting. Here's what I want you to do right now, before we go any further. I want you to guess, just guess where you actually stand. Because in part 2, we're going to run the real math together. And I promise you, it's going to feel personal. Okay, so let's actually do this together. Because I think a lot of people avoid the math, not because they're lazy, but because they're scared of what it's going to say about them. So let's use a real person, not some hypothetical millionaire, someone making around $60,000 to $80,000 a year, decent job. Normal life. Maybe a little behind on saving. Sound familiar? The standard rule of thumb, and yes, this is oversimplified, but it's a starting point, is that you need about 25 times your annual expenses saved up before you retire. That's the number most financial planners start with. So if you spend $50,000 a year in retirement, and that's actually pretty modest, you need $1.25 million. If you spend $65,000, which is closer to average, you're looking at $1.6 million minimum. Now here's where it starts getting uncomfortable. If you're 38 with $41,000 saved and you want to retire at 65, you have 27 years. That sounds like a lot. I thought it sounded like a lot too. To go from $41,000 to $1.6 million in 27 years, assuming your investments grow at around 7%. Annually, you would need to save and invest roughly $2,200 every single month, without stopping, without a single missed month. Now let me guess what you just thought. You thought, well, I'm putting something in every month. That's better than nothing, right? I thought the exact same thing. For years, here's the brutal truth about saving something. If you're putting in $200 a month at 38 and you keep that up for 27 years, you'll end up with around $165,000. That's it. That gap between 165 and 1.6 million, that gap has a name. It's called the retirement shortfall. And for most middle-class Americans right now, that gap is not small, it is staggering. And here's the thing that nobody talks about: saving more isn't even the hardest part. The hardest part is that most people at this stage genuinely cannot save $2,200 a month. The math is real, the income isn't there. Now I need to tell you about the thing that makes all of this so much harder. And it's not the stock market, it's not the economy, it's something called compounding. And the reason it hurts is because it was working against you this whole time without you knowing. Compounding is basically this: money makes money, and then that money makes more money. And over time, it snowballs. The longer it runs, the bigger it gets. But and this is the part that stings: it needs time to work. Lots of it. And time is the one thing you cannot buy back. If someone invests $10,000 at age 25 and never adds another penny by 65, at 7%, they have around $150,000. 10,000, no extra contributions, just time. Now, if that same person waits until 35 to invest that same 10,000, same 7%, no extra contributions, they end up with 76,000 at 65, not 150, 76. 10 years cost them almost half. So here's what actually happened to a lot of us. We weren't irresponsible. We weren't reckless. We just spent our 20s figuring life out. And in those years, the most valuable years for compounding the clock was ticking quietly. I spent my late 20s changing jobs, building a life, buying stuff that felt important. I wasn't blowing money on crazy things. I was just living normal life, and normal life. Life, it turns out, has a very quiet and very expensive cost that nobody puts on the price tag. The retirement system in this country doesn't send you a warning. There's no alarm. There's no notification that says, hey, you're falling behind. It just waits, and the longer it waits, the harder the conversation gets. But here's the thing, and I need you to hear this before we go any further. Knowing this math, as uncomfortable as it is not the end. It's actually the beginning. Because you cannot fix a problem you refuse to look at. And you're still looking. That matters more than you. No, I want to paint you a picture. Not a scary movie picture. Not a worst-case disaster scenario. Just a realistic Tuesday afternoon picture of what retirement actually looks like for someone who didn't fix this. Because I think most people have never actually let themselves see it clearly. Average American retires at around 64, 65. And when they do, if they haven't saved enough, the first thing they reach for is Social Security. Like it's a safety net. Like it was designed to carry them. Here's what Social Security actually pays. The average monthly benefit right now is around $1,900. Some people get a little more, some get less. But let's be generous. Let's say you get $2,200 a month. That's $26,000 a year. $26,000 a year in today's money, before inflation, before healthcare costs that are almost guaranteed to rise as you get older, before anything unexpected. That's what the safety net actually looks like up close. So what do most people do when Social Security isn't enough? They work. Not because they want to, not because work gives them purpose, but because the math requires it. They go back to work at 68, 69, and they call it staying active. But you and I both know what it really is. And look, there is absolutely nothing wrong with working at any age. Work can be meaningful, but there is a profound difference between choosing to work at 70 because you love it and having to work at 70 because your savings ran out. The choice is the thing. Retirement was never supposed to be about doing nothing. It was supposed to be about having the choice. And money specifically, enough money is the only thing that buys you that choice. I sat in that kitchen at 38 years old and realized if I did nothing, my retirement plan was essentially work until my body stops, hope Social Security doesn't get cut, and pray nothing expensive goes wrong with my health. That was my plan, and I hadn't even written it down. It just was. That nobody talks about because it feels too personal, too close. When people don't have enough saved and Social Security isn't covering it, the next thing that quietly happens is this: the children become the retirement plan. Not because the parents planned it that way, not because they're selfish, but because there's simply no other option left. And the kids who are now in their 30s, 40s, building their own lives absorb that weight. And it changes everything for them too. I have a friend, I'll call him Marcus. His parents are in their early 70s. Between the two of them, they bring in about $2,000 a month from Social Security. Their rent alone is $1,400. Marcus sends money home every single month, has for 3 years, and he never talks about it. And here's what that actually costs Marcus beyond the money. He hasn't been able to max out his own retirement account in 3 years. He keeps saying he'll catch up later, and now you know what catching up later actually means. There is one sentence, one specific sentence that I believe has cost middle-class Americans more money than any bad investment, any market crash, any economic recession. You want to know what it is? I'll figure it out. That's it. 4 words, said quietly, said often, said every time the retirement account statement comes in the mail and goes straight into the drawer, said every time someone brings up savings at the dinner table and everyone changes the subject. I'll figure the most expensive sentence in America. Because I'll figure it out isn't a plan. It's a postponement. And every month it gets said, every month the drawer closes on that statement. The problem doesn't stay the same size. It gets bigger, quietly, invisibly, the way mold grows in a wall you never open. I want to be clear about something. I am not here to make you feel bad about where you are. Where you are is where millions of Americans are. This isn't a personal failure. It is a system that was never designed to be intuitive. But awareness, real awareness, is where everything starts. Because here's what is also true, and I need you to hold both of these things at the same time. Yes, the math is hard. Yes, the gap is real. And also, you are not done. The window is not closed. The people who are really in trouble are the ones who never looked. You looked. You're still here. In part 4, we're going to talk about what actually moves the needle from here. Not magic, not a get-rich scheme. Real, uncomfortable, specific things that people in their late 30s and 40s have done to close the gap. Some of them will surprise you. Some of them you already know but keep avoiding. Either way, part 4 is where we stop looking at the problem and start building the answer. Okay, we've looked at the problem, we've sat with it, we've let it be uncomfortable. Now I want to talk about what actually helps. And I'm going to warn you up front, none of this is going to sound exciting. None of it goes viral, but it works. And right now, working is the only thing that matters. I also want to say this clearly. I am not a financial advisor. I'm someone who went through this, researched it obsessively, and wants to share what I found. Always run your specific situation by a real professional. What I'm giving you today is a framework, not a prescription. There are really 4 things that move the retirement needle from this point forward: income, expenses, contributions, and time. That's it. Everything else is noise. Everything else is someone selling you something. These 4 things, that's the whole game. Let's start with income, because this is the one people avoid the most. And I get it. Talking about making more money feels either impossible or uncomfortable. But here's the truth. Saving your way to retirement on a flat income at this stage is almost mathematically impossible for most people. The income has to move. Now, I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow and become an entrepreneur. I'm saying, when did you last ask for a raise? When did you last look at whether your skills are worth more somewhere else? When did you last treat your income like a number that can change instead of a fact of life that can't? A $10,000 income increase, 1 raise, 1 job move, 1 promoted skill invested consistently from age 40 to 65 at 7% adds roughly $650,000 to your retirement. 1 decision, 1 number. That's not a side hustle. Pitch. That's just math. The second lever is expenses. And I'm not going to tell you to stop buying coffee. That conversation is tired, and it's also wrong. A $5 coffee is not why you're behind on retirement, but there is something in your budget right now that is, and most people have never actually gone looking for it. I call this expense archaeology. You're not cutting, you're digging. You're going back through the last 3 months of your bank statements and asking one question for every single charge. Does this actively make my life better, or did I just forget to cancel it? Most people who do this exercise really do it. Every line, no skipping, find between $150 and $300 a month they didn't know they were spending. That's not small. At 7% over 25 years, $300 a month is over $250,000. And here's the psychological shift that makes this actually work. You're not giving things up. You're choosing where your money goes consciously instead of unconscious. That reframe sounds small. It doesn't feel small when you start doing it. Here is something that I genuinely did not know until I was staring at that retirement calculator at 38 years old. And I want to make sure you know it too. Once you turn 50, the government actually lets you contribute more to your retirement accounts than younger people. It's called a catch-up contribution. In a standard 401k, people under 50 can put in up to $23,000 a year. But once you hit 50, you can add an extra $7,500 on top of that. That's $30,500 a year that you can shelter from taxes and grow for retirement. Most people over 50 have no idea this exists. Now can everyone max that out? No, most people can't. But even moving toward it matters. Going from $200 a month to $500 a month in contributions isn't the whole answer, but it changes the trajectory. And changing the trajectory is the whole point. Now, I want to talk about the thing that is harder than any of the math. Because I've seen people who understand all of this, every number, every rule, every calculator, and still don't change anything. And the reason is almost never the money. It's the story they're telling themselves about the money. The most common story I hear sounds like this: it's too late for me. And I understand why people feel that. I felt it too. But too late is not a math conclusion. It is an emotional response dressed up as a logical one. The math almost never says too late. The feelings do. The shift that actually changed things for me wasn't a spreadsheet. It was one question I started asking myself every single month. Not did I save enough, because that question always made me feel behind. The question was, am I moving in the right direction? That's it. Because here's what I know now that I didn't know that Tuesday night. At the kitchen table, the people who recover from a late financial start, and they do recover, real people, all the time, they don't all find a magic solution. They just stop stopping. They make one decision, then another, then another. They stay in motion. That's the whole secret. Stay in motion. In part 5, the final part, we're going to bring all of this together. I'm going to show you what a realistic recovery plan actually looks like for someone starting from where we started. Not perfect, not painless, but real and possible. Because the math we ran at the beginning of this video, it was the bad news. Part 5 is where we run the other math. All right, this is the part I wish someone had shown me that Tuesday night, not the scary math, the other math. The what if I actually do something about this math? And I want to build it in front of you slowly, honestly, from the exact same starting point we've been using this whole video. Person, 38 years old, $41,000 saved, making around $70,000 a year, contributing roughly $200 a month to their 41K. That's where we start. That's the honest baseline. No sugarcoating, no pretending it's better than it is. Now, we're going to make 3 changes, just 3, nothing extreme, nothing that requires a lottery win or a trust fund or a dramatic life overhaul. 3 specific, realistic moves, and then we're going to watch what the math does with them. Move 1, income. Our person finds a way to increase their take-home income by $10,000 a year. Maybe that's a raise they've been avoiding asking for. Maybe it's a job move. Maybe it's one small freelance skill they already have. $10,000. That's the target. Spread over a year, it's less than $1,000 a month extra. Move 2, expenses. They do the expense archaeology we talked about. They go through 3 months of bank statements, cancel the subscriptions they forgot about, redirect spending that wasn't adding real value. They find conservatively $200 a month, and they move that directly into retirement. Contributions. Move 3. Contributions. They take the income increase from move 1, and instead of letting it become lifestyle inflation, instead of letting the raise quietly disappear into a bigger car payment or a nicer apartment, they redirect half of it, $5,000 a year straight, into their retirement account every year without touching it. So, to summarize the 3 moves, income up $10,000, expenses redirected $200 more per month, and half the raise goes straight to retirement. That's the whole plan. Written out, it fits on one line. Living it is harder than writing it. But the math we're about to run makes it worth understanding. Okay, let's run it, starting at 38. $41,000 already saved. Now contributing roughly $615 a month. That's the $200 they were putting in, plus the $200 from expenses, plus the extra from the raise redirected monthly, at 7% average annual growth until age 65, 27 years. The number that comes back with those 3 moves, starting from $41,000, contributing $615 a month, 7% growth, 27 years, is approximately $840,000. Not $2 million, but not $41,000 either, $840,000. Now, is $840,000 enough to retire on? Depends on your lifestyle. Combined with Social Security, even the modest version we talked about it starts to look like an actual plan, a real number. Not a fantasy, not a catastrophe. A real, workable number that came from 3 specific decisions. And here's the part that gets me every time I think about it. The difference between those 2 outcomes, $840,000 versus $165, wasn't luck. It wasn't a windfall. It wasn't a viral business or a crypto bet. It was $615 a month. And a decision to stop saying, I'll figure it out. I want to tell you something that took me a long time to understand. Starting late at something hard doesn't make you a failure. It makes you someone who started. And in personal finance, in retirement specifically, the people who start late and stay consistent almost always end up somewhere better than the people who started early and stop. Consistency is worth more than a perfect start. Showing up every month, even with a modest contribution, even in the years when the market is down, when life is hard, when everything in you wants to pause, that showing up is the actual work. That's what builds the number. I also want to say something to anyone watching this who is past 40, 45, 50, even 55. The math changes, the numbers adjust, but the principle doesn't. Every year you add still compounds. Every contribution still matters. The window gets smaller, but it doesn't close until you close it. That Tuesday night in my kitchen, when I finally ran those numbers, I thought I was opening a door to a nightmare. And in some ways it was hard. It was genuinely hard to see. But what it actually was, underneath the discomfort, was information. And information, no matter how uncomfortable, is always better than the alternative. The alternative is what most people choose, not because they're careless, but because looking is uncomfortable. So they don't look, and the drawer closes, and the statement sits unopened, and the years pass. And one day, they're 63 with no plan and no time to build one. And that right there is the real retirement crisis in America, not the math, the avoidance. You watched this video, all of it. That means you looked. That means the drawer is open. And I want you to know genuinely that matters. Not because watching a video fixes anything, it doesn't. But because the decision to look always comes before the decision to act. You're already one step further than you were an hour ago. Do the math. Tonight if you can. Not to scare yourself, to know yourself. Because the number waiting in that calculator isn't your verdict, it's your starting point. And starting points, no matter where they are, can always move forward. That's the math that actually matters. Take care of yourself. I mean that